G'day, you've got BJ Barlin here from enviroview. What we're going to do today is go through the setup of the enviroview product, take you through basically the web and adding a 6CT, and then we'll address it, upload firmware and get you started. So what I'm going to do first up is basically show you what's in the box. So there's the box there. Open her up. Inside the box you'll see this is the EV web. That there is the USB stick that sits in the top of the unit, and the power supply. So basically got all those sort of started up and ready to go. Then you'll see the EVCT6, and what I've pointed at here is the MAC address. So that MAC address is going to be very important for later, and it's located, if you see my mouse on the side of the unit there, you need that when you want to try and search for it on a network. So I'm opening up the CT6 now. There's the two units all set up and ready to go. So basically what we're going to do now is I'll take you through to the next video that is basically going to be the wiring of the unit. So we specify to wire the units in between the EV web and the CT6 with a Cat6 or a Cat5 cable. And what I've done, you can see there, I've twisted the orange pair together, I've twisted the green pair together, and I used the blue and I used the white for your data positive and negative, and you'll see these terminals at the top here. So if you have a look at the unit, that you've got positive, D minus, D positive and ground, and this is where you use this. So what I'm suggesting here is to make sure that you wire these things in Cat5 or Cat6 in between the units, and we've wired them at distances from the EV web to the CT6 of over a couple of 100 meters without any problem whatsoever. So that's the first part. If we go into there, then the power supply, so you'll see there's the unit already hooked up. There's a power supply up the top here. You'll see, we'll grab it, and what we're going to do with the power supply is to cut the plug off the end of it and actually put the plug directly into the unit itself. So you just cut it off. You'll see, strip it up. Like so, you'll see a black and a red. Obviously the red is PWR power, which goes in these terminals here, and the black goes in G for ground. So please don't get those mixed up. And next we go. So this is the next setup that I'll have a chat to you guys about, is the modem. We've done a fair bit of testing, and because this thing, and I'm not going to get into networks with you, but because the enviroview comes at what's called DHCP, we suggest here to use what's called this Draytech. It's called a Vigafly 210. This unit here can take, as I'm showing here, a USB stick that'll allow you to have a prepaid USB data card directly into it. It also acts as a modem, as a router, so that if you've got an existing network, you can just plug the LAN in, and it lets you browse to it wirelessly. The unit itself is an absolute no-brainer. So I'm putting out the USB sticks. It's got the ports there. I just find it really, really easy to use this. So if you're out on site, you can go and buy a prepaid data USB stick, and this is literally how you hook it up. So basically you just plug it in, turn it on, plug it into the enviroview unit, and then once that's all set up, you then plug the enviroview unit in, and away you go. So you'll notice here, right, when I plug it in, that the USB light is lighting up and the pole light's coming on. Now see how the USB, I've sort of got it out of screen a bit, but the USB and the pole are flashing. So here you'll see the USB and pole flashing. That means that the enviroview is not connected to the net. Sure, you'll be able to browse to it, but it's not connected to the net. So that's just a small telltale sign, if you've ever got it installed, that basically you don't have the unit hooked up to the net. So basically what I'm going to do now is take you into the box setup and how we use it with the modem and so forth. So with this Draytech unit, right, you can go to the Draytech unit itself and you can browse to the standard default browse, which is 192.168.1.1. It'll ask you for your username and password, which is just admin and admin. And then you'll see a whole bunch of information and all sorts of stuff, right? So you want to go into diagnostics and hit DHCP table, and you'll see here that you've got two things. One of these is my computer, the other one is the enviroview itself. Now remember, I was telling you about that MAC address before. So the MAC address is located on the side of the EV web, and it says MAC, and it's got a whole number, and it'll end in certain numbers. Mine ends in E2. So I know that if I go to my address bar, I can basically go 192.168.1.10 and it'll come up. So let's go 192.168.1.10. Bang. Away it comes up straight away. Now I've browsed to this one before, so the admin and password won't come up, but your standard username and password for this unit, which you'll see here, is admin and the password is 1234. You can tick that to have it as security. So go back to the dashboard. What we're going to do now that you've browsed to the unit, you can see the main EV web itself. What we want to do now is add the CT6 unit to it, because you can add up to 19 of these units, right? So what I'm going to do is show you a little video on exactly how that works. So you'll see here what I've got is I've got my computer all set up. It's all plugged into the modem. I've browsed to the unit. So we're all connected and things are good to go. What I've done is make sure that obviously I've got to the internet as well, because the internet's critical for the unit to pick up its date and time and to initialize the USB stick. So sure, you can set up the IP addresses and so forth, but you need to have this thing connected to the net so it gets a real date and time. And that's why I suggest this Draytech unit, so you can just have, you can do it anywhere. So if we go into this thing now, you pop the cap off the EVCT6 and press and hold the button until you see this green LED start to flash. So you can see that start to flash. So what we do now is we'll go into System Setup, and then if you hit Box Setup, which I can show you on this, so you go Setup, Box Setup, and you'll see here, we'll go back to this and press play. So what we'll do now is, I'm looking at, you don't need to touch anything on this top row whatsoever, but what you want to do there is you want to add a new box. So see, you click here on Add New, and you want to select the type, and you got to do this within 2 minutes while this thing's clicking around. So you want to say, yep, EVCT6, that's what I want to add, hit OK. So you'll see me do this in this section. So I've selected EVCT6, I've hit OK, and then if you look right down this bottom corner where I'm sitting here, it says address it. So basically what I do then is hit address it, and you'll see straight away that this thing will stop basically flashing. So that's the way you set the whole unit up. So let's go back in and pause on that so I can go through this whole thing again with you. Basically what you need to do, you go into here, so you add EVCT6, you press the button, it's flashing, and you say, okay, there it is there, the one I added. So say for example I want to add another one, and then while the thing's flashing, you'll hit address it. And away you go. So yet again, address it, and the box will stop flashing. That's the easiest way to set the unit up. Makes it real simple and real easy. So once you've got that set up, what I've done here and what you'll see is once you've got it set up and addressed, you'll be able to go into the box and hit edit, and it says firmware. So this is basically where you set up your firmware, or you know that the box is connected. So if this has got nothing in it, you'll know that your box is not connected. You need to power the unit down, press and hold that in, and do it again. Make sense? Cool. Okay, so next thing we want to do is check out the polling side of it. Once you've done it, and once you've set it up, the way you can test and have a good look at what it's doing is the lights have got a run light, which you can see here, and they've got a pole light. You'll see that pole light will pole once there and once there. You'll see it flash again, and they'll do it in sequence. So you'll see on the left it's pole and pole. So what will happen is the run light will flash about 4 or 5 times, I think it is, or 6 times, and then you'll see that pole light flash, and you'll see the EVCT6 pole light flash. If you don't see that pole light working, it means that you haven't addressed it correctly. Cool. Okay, so next thing you want to do is, once you've got that hooked up and connected and your run light's flashing, it means you're connected to the internet. What we would suggest to do is to do a firmware update. The easiest way to do a firmware update is you basically get into the unit itself, you go system maintenance, here it is there. So I've just updated the firmware today. You hit update firmware, make sure you're connected to the internet. When you hit update firmware, you'll notice that this USB light starts to flash. And that means that basically what it's doing is the firmware's updating. It takes about 2 minutes normally. And you'll sit there and see this thing flashing and flashing and flashing. And then once it's done, you'll see the final unit start to run, and you'll see this run light's pulsing a little bit quicker than normal. That means that it's just about loaded up, and it's getting all the information, and you can see off here that this is flashing. It's got its information from the USB stick. Now we're in business, so you can see it's running. It'll poll there in a second, and you know that you're away. So that's the easiest way to set that up. Okay, so that's the first video that I'm going to do today. Just thought I'd keep you updated as to how things go. What we'll do in the next video is we'll then go into network setup, box setup, group setup, and basically channel setup, so you can get the next step to setting up your enviroview product.